Okay, good evening, colleagues. It's gone 7 o'clock. Can we make a start? Before we kick off with the business, a couple of preliminary matters. We've had a request to auto-record the meeting from the gallery. Again, we've had this in the past. As you know, the meeting has been webcast anyway, so I don't have any issues with it. Are you all comfortable with it? Just so as you know, okay? Right. Ordinarily at this stage there would be an agenda item for the Provost's Award, so I want to just say a few things about that. This year's Provost Award has actually been very successful. We've had the highest number of entrants that we've ever had, or nominations for the Provost's Award coming in from local residents for the Citizen of the Year. So we have 22, I think. Do we have some? Cecil, that's fine. That's fine. That's comfortable. Season's greetings to everybody, right? Okay. We had 22 nominations put forward for the Citizen of the Year. It was actually very difficult to make a judgment about who would be successful and win the award. As you know, we have a panel. It's drawn. I'm speaking as loud as I can, so the audio system is working. So if you unfortunately we have people outside, I think, making a noise, so I can't help that. But I'll speak as loud as I can. Okay. We have 22 people who have submitted an award. We have a winner, and it's a husband and wife team this year. It's an Ashley and Paul McElvenny. Many of you will know them. They do great work in the area, and they set up the Me Too Club in 2010 to provide social opportunities and activities for adults across East Renfrewshire with additional support needs. Since then, the volunteer-led charity has gone from strength to strength, and almost 400 residents benefit from the Me Too Club. The success and growth of the club has been down to Ashley and Paul's dedicated volunteering. Such is their dedication, they unfortunately can't be here tonight because it's the annual community Christmas party for 120 people, which they are running this evening. So we can either bring them in for a later council meeting at some point later on in the year, and you can meet the two individuals. But I will certainly go out to their premises when they're holding one of the events to formally present the award to them, and I believe they're quite keen that that happens. So it's a very good news story. They are quite an inspirational couple, and I think it would be useful for the councillors to see them at some point. But I wanted just to make that announcement because, as you know, we normally have that award at our annual meeting at the end of the year. Okay? So with that, can we move on to the business of the council this evening? Firstly, are there any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Provost. Apologies for absence from Councillor Cunningham.
Okay, we note that. Thank you very much. Are there any declarations of interest? Oh, sorry. Councillor, okay?
Thank you, Provost. I declare an interest as a member of the Leisure Trust Board in respect of the business plan.
Councillor Merrick.
Also, declaration of interest as a board member of the Culture and Leisure Trust.
Okay. Councillor Grant.
I am also a member of the Leisure Trust Board.
And Councillor Devlin. Okay, thank you for the declarations. We now move on to item number 3, which is the minute of the meeting of the 31st of October 2018. Now, the minute is simply in front of you for approval and signature. Are there any matters of accuracy that renders the minute inaccurate? Councillor Wallace?
Is it possible to ask a question?
Only in the accuracy. It's the full council. We're not rerunning a debate. If there's a matter of accuracy in the minute, you can deal with it.
Okay.
But it's quite...
Rerun it at a different occasion. Thank you.
Can I take the minute as a true record? Thank you very much. Moving on to item 4, the volume of the meetings from 1st November to 18th December. These minutes are submitted for approval, but I'm happy to take questions on the minute volume from anyone. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Provost. It's on page 608, the second bottom paragraph, more or less the last words in it. There are no odours coming from the plant during the course of the site visit. We had no concerns of the proposal under consideration. If it were the similar operation rather than as it would be a similar operation. If it were a similar operation. I thought that'd quite happen.
Is there people comfortable with that change? Okay, we'll accept that.
Thank you, Provost. Just curious on page, just bear with me. On page 586, part 651, it refers to the Eastwood Leisure Centre consultation.
Sorry, Councillor Wallace, I think you're on the council meeting.
Oh, am I? Was that the previous one?
Yes, we're now on to the minute volume for the Cabinet.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Swift.
Thank you, Provost. Page 636. And it's the top paragraph. And it was in relation to the review of the Trust's finances, the Culture and Leisure Trust's finances. And I felt it was important that the Council's Audit and Scrutiny Committee should be provided with regular updates. I was told that we might be able to get an update because they were having a board meeting, and it was to do with whether they had managed to close the gap in their accounts or not. So would it be possible to get an update on whether we have closed that gap or not?
Okay, I'll give you a report offline then, yeah?
That's fine, I'm happy with that.
Okay, that's fine. Any other questions on the minute volume? Okay, thank you very much. Can we approve that then? Items which are remitted to the Council for approval. Item number 5, this is, which is the Interim Treasury Management Report for 2018-19. And this is remitted from the Audit and Scrutiny Committee of the 22nd of November. Now, happy to take any questions on that. There are 2 recommendations as set out in the paper. Sorry.
The only thing I can say about it is that there's a typo there. It is not the Marquee money funds, but the market money funds.
We'll note that typo. Thank you. Any other questions in the paper? Okay, can I move on to the second one, which is the General Fund Capital Programme, which is remitted from the Cabinet of 6th December. Again, it's just for approval of the amendments therein. Thank you. And the third one, the Housing Capital Programme, again is remitted from Cabinet of 6th of December. Okay. I think. Can we move on to item number 6, which is the notice of motion, of which we have a number this evening. Just before we go through them, it might just be worth setting out the rules of how we will deal with them under standing orders. I will ask the mover of the motion to simply read out the motion, not to speak to it. Now, the mover of the motion, as you know, has 10 minutes, the second 5 minutes if they so wish. But I will only debate them if there is an amendment. So I will ask the mover of the motion to read out the motion, confirm there is a seconder, confirm if there are any amendments to the motion. And if there are no amendments, we will accept the motion. If there are amendments, we will move to debate. Okay? So can I take the first motion? Is that not clear to you, Councillor MacDonald?
Oh, it is clear. I just wanted to ask before we go ahead. I have 3 motions on the agenda tonight, and I wanted to ask respectfully, with your permission and with the Chamber's approval, that we could hear my motion number 3 first before motion number 2, followed by 4 and then 2. Would that be at all possible? Contextually, there's something within the statements that I'm making on 2 of the motions that would make more sense if I have them in that order. So it would be 3, 4 and then 2.
So you want motion 1, motion 3, sorry, motion 1.
Councillor Miller's motion 1, then I would be asking for motion 3 to be heard, followed by motion 4, followed by motion 2.
Okay.
It's up to you. If you're happy with that, you can change the order.
Does anybody have any problem with that? Okay, we'll do that. Okay. May confuse me, but we'll do that. Right, can we go for item motion number 1 first? Can I ask Councillor Miller to read out his motion?
Thank you, Provost. The motion is that this council acknowledges the importance of discouraging people from dropping litter, supports increasing fixed penalty notices for littering from £80 to £100, and agrees a letter be sent to from this local authority to the Scottish Government, making clear that this council's support of increasing default on-the-spot fines from £80 to £100, and request that ministers implement this change as quickly as possible. I do have a seconder in Charlie Gilbert.
With Councillor Gilbert, your second. Is there an amendment to that motion? Okay, if we're all in favour, can we just simply accept the motion? I take it you don't want to grandstand, you're happy just for the motion to go through. Right. I don't want to rain in your parade, but
Sorry, you're welcome to carry on.
Good man, that's what I like to hear. Right, there is unanimity, so there's no need to have a debate in it. So motion number 1 is therefore passed. Okay, can we move on then to motion number 3, which is the motion on young people's rights? Could I ask Councillor MacDonald to read his motion, not to speak to it, just to read the motion at this stage?
Thank you, Provost. Motion number 3, that East Renfrewshire Council recognises the Scottish Youth Parliament's campaign Right Here, Right Now, understands that this campaign seeks to raise awareness of young people's rights across society and supports the Youth Parliament's cause of ensuring that young people's rights are protected, respected and fulfilled in Scotland. The Council further notes and endorses the main objectives of this campaign to ensure that young people are aware of and empowered to defend their rights as outlined in the United Nations Convention of the Rights of the Child, to ensure that Article 12 of UNCRC, that young people have a right to be consulted on all matters affecting them, is properly fulfilled by decision makers at all levels, and ultimately to call on the Scottish Government to incorporate the UNCRC into domestic Scottish law. That the Council recognises the UNCRC as the most complete statement of children's rights ever produced, as well as the most widely ratified international human rights treaty in history. Therefore, Council calls on the Scottish Government to incorporate the UNCRC into Scots law before the end of this parliamentary term, and that Councillor Buchanan, in the role of Leader of the Council, writes to Marie Todd, MSP, Minister for Children and Young People, calling on this incorporation to take place. And I have a seconder in Councillor Aitken.
Okay, thank you, Councillor MacDonald. Can I confirm you are seconding it, Councillor?
Yep, second, Provost.
Right, okay. Is there an amendment to that motion? Councillor O'Kane.
Thank you, Provost. I've printed enough copies to be circulated, but essentially it's an amendment that just adds to the motion. I'm not attempting to take anything from what I think is a good motion, so I'll perhaps just share that once it's been circulated.
Singing carols, can't be Thanks, Paul. Thank you very much.
Provost, I think I think all elected members have a copy now, so perhaps just for the benefit, if I can just read the amendment. I'm just asking to insert a further paragraph after where it ends Scottish domestic law in paragraph 2, just to say that Council acknowledges the excellent work already undertaken across East Renfrewshire to support children and young people to be aware and defend their rights, celebrates the fact that currently all of our schools are engaged in the UNICEF Rights Respecting School Award, which recognises the school's achievement in putting the UNCRC into practice in school and beyond. Further celebrates that 9 schools have the Gold Level Award, 12 have silver and 9 have bronze, and that Busby Primary, Mearns Primary, St John's Primary and Wood Farm High have all been re-accredited at gold level, meaning that they have long-standing rights-respecting schools at the highest level verified by UNICEF and praised for their work in involving children in decision-making across the school. And then really just to slightly amend the final paragraph, just because I became aware that the government have done some work on this, but indeed that they do need to do some more. So after it says treaty and history, I want to just add agrees to continue to build on the success of the Rights Respecting School Award, notes that the Scottish Government made a commitment in September to incorporate the principles of UNCRC into Scots law, calls for the Scottish Government to go further to fully incorporate the UNCRC, and agrees that Councillor Buchanan, as Leader of the Council, write to Marie Todd, MSP, Minister for Children and Young People, in this regard.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Councillor O'Kane. There is an amendment. Sorry, do you have a seconder for that? Councillor Merrick, okay, we'll note your seconding at the moment. You have the opportunity, Councillor MacDonald, if you want, to accept that amendment, which arguably strengthens what you're trying to do, or if you're not willing to accept it, we'll move to debate and we'll debate your motion against the amendment. So it's up to yourself whether you accept your motion as amended.
I'm willing to accept what Councillor O'Kane has put forward there. I don't have any problem with it. Just out of respect for the people that I've worked with closely on this particular agenda item, I think it would be quite prudent to actually have the statement that I had prepared read out within the chamber.
Well, trying to really avoid having a debate in it if there is unanimity, as we did in the first motion. So, I mean, I'm in your hands, basically. But if you're happy to accept the amendment, I think we would move on. All due respect.
Fair enough.
Because there's quite a bit of business to go through. Okay, so can we accept that motion as amended? And the letter will go to the Minister in due course. And you wanted motion 4 debated next, is that correct? So again, over to yourself, Councillor MacDonald.
That is correct. Thank you, Provost. Motion number 4, that East Renfrewshire Council commences webcasting of all meetings of the Audit and Scrutiny Committee, Education Committee, Cabinet, Police and Fire and Planning Committee, Local Review Body, in addition to the present arrangements of webcasting of full Council meetings, utilising the full 30 hours per annum that it pays for within the current contract with Public Eye. The East Renfrewshire Council also broadcast the meetings of all committees previously mentioned, plus meetings of the full Council using live streaming on social media through its Facebook and Twitter social media pages from June 19th, 2019 onwards, a period of 6 months from today's date, and archive all of them on the Council's YouTube page for each full term of the Council. And I have a seconder in Councillor Aiken.
Councillor Aiken, okay. Is there an amendment to that motion? Councillor Ireland.
Thank you. I have an amendment that just reads, East Renfrewshire Council will continue to webcast meetings of the full Council.
Thank you, Councillor Ireland. Do you have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Lafferty. I think that's probably not necessarily one that you would see as enhancing your motion, Councillor MacDonald. So can I move back to yourself then, just to formally move your motion, and then that will be followed. Can I remind councillors you have 10 minutes to move the motion, no longer. Councillor Aiken will have his 5 minutes to second if he so wishes, and anybody else contributing will have up to 5 minutes. And you will then have summing up, Councillor MacDonald, where you can have 5 minutes to sum up. Okay?
Thank you very much, Provost. When it comes to effective and proper political governance within Council chambers, maximum levels of transparency is a positive thing. Elected members are voted in by electors to perform, and it is therefore paramount that electors are allowed to witness the performance of committees, Cabinet and full Council. At present, the only meetings that are currently webcast for the press and public are the meetings of the full Council. Last year, approximately 12 hours of the 30 hours were used of the annual contract that the local authority are signed up to with Public Eye, the specialist company that gather the footage from these cameras that we see within the chamber. This contract is costing the local authority approximately £10,000 per year. If all 30 hours are utilised, this would mean that each hour of gathered footage would cost roughly around £333 an hour. But as it stands, given that only the 12 hours were used last year, roughly about £4,000 worth of footage, it left a balance of 18 hours of unused time, or approximately £6,000 of wasted hours not used. Effectively, each one of the 12 hours that were used cost £833 per hour. Given that each meeting of the full council lasts on average about 90 to 120 minutes, this means that on average each council meeting is costing approximately £1,200 to £1,600 to gather the footage and have it stored. In 2019, there will be 7 council meetings. It is safe to say that 12 to 14 hours of footage will be gathered from these meetings, leaving a substantial amount of footage that will not be used. It is my view that East Renfrewshire Council should now extend the webcasting to cover all meetings of the Audit and Scrutiny Committee, Cabinet, Police and Fire and Planning Committee local review body, the committee meetings with the greatest degree of public interest. It is not my wish to extend this to the Licensing Committee, as almost every meeting of the Licensing Committee passes a resolution to exclude the press and public due to the nature of the information that comes before it. And for the purposes of explanation to the gallery and the people watching, such an example of that would be, for example's sake, a private hire driver charged with a criminal offence, but not having yet had the opportunity to appear before a court of law. It's therefore not appropriate for public viewing. Webcasting these additional meetings will bring about a much greater level of openness and transparency, and the local authority should embrace that opportunity, and elected members should do so too. We need to strive to bring about a much improved way that the public can view the decisions that we take. It's imperative that they hear our thoughts, our debates, our arguments and our proposals. The public deserve to hear everything that they can. As we all know in this chamber, the minutes are not verbatim as to every single word that is stated, but a recorded webcast is just that, a perfect record of everything that is said in the chamber, or at least it should be if everybody in the chamber were to use their microphones properly and switch them on prior to speaking and switching them off once they're finished. It's also important to point out to both the people in this chamber and to the public that when an elected member presses their microphone switch, that it automatically activates the camera to fix on that particular elected member. Hi, Mum. So when an elected member does not switch on their microphone when speaking, whether purposeful or not, it could be construed to be an attempt not to be on the record. So I would urge all people who use microphones in this chamber to try much harder going forward to operate your microphones properly. There are people watching at home, and we owe it to them that they hear what we say, not just to the members of the public that make the great effort to join us in the public gallery, for which I am very appreciative of their attendance. We elected members need the public viewing us. A well-engaged electorate brings about a well-calibrated elected membership that better understands that their performance as an elected member is being scrutinised and judged, as is the performance of council department heads and heads of service that come before the council and committee meetings to answer questions posed to them and to make statements pertaining to their own department's performance and decisions. To draw a comparison, the neighbouring council of Glasgow City have a public eye contract broadcast no less than 12, and they broadcast no less than 12 different committees beyond that of full council. The Planning Applications Committee, Education Committee, Audit and Scrutiny Committee all feature within that list, as does another committee that I really like the sound of, the Operational Performance and Service Delivery Committee. A new committee to be considered at East Renfrewshire Council, perhaps, of which I would gladly return from my leave of committee membership to return to. I certainly know that my constituents would welcome increased scrutiny of operational performance and service delivery. I've been in discussion with the committee services manager at Glasgow City Council, and he informs me that they have a contract with Public Eye for 60 hours to cover for the committee webcasting previously mentioned. Twice the hours as East Renfrewshire, but 6 times the population as us. Twice the hours, but 5 times the budget as us. They manage fine with 60 hours with the 12 committees plus full council. We should be able to handle the 5 additional committees plus the full council that I am calling for. This all makes for far improved accountability and, in turn, hopefully better governance. Going forward, I would like the local authority to adopt a more cost-efficient and modern application for webcasting. That is why I am calling for the meetings of the full council and the mentioned committees in Cabinet to be broadcast on Facebook Live and go live on Twitter. These are mediums that are easy to access on a number of different devices, from home computers to laptops to mobile internet-enabled devices such as tablets and smartphones through the Facebook and Twitter apps. The public would be able to watch us on the bus ride home from work, on the way to the cinema, in a taxi perhaps, or sitting having a coffee in a cafe. What's more is that the live broadcasting on Facebook allows for people to leave written feedback directly below the broadcast, or push a love heart or angry face emoticon if that is their thing. People can also share the live broadcast with as many social media friends as they wish during the broadcast, thus extending the viewing audience well beyond that of the reach that currently view it on the traditional public eye portal through the East Renfrewshire website. This has the potential to go viral, and I want this level of transparency to be made available to every citizen in East Renfrewshire and beyond, should they choose to access it in the easiest ways possible. This is a far more efficient, modern and effective way to broadcast the meetings at East Renfrewshire Council. The best part is, Facebook and Twitter don't receive a penny for broadcasting live. It's all part of the features that are available for Twitter and Facebook accounts. All it would require is for the camera feed to be connected to the council's social media accounts, something that is now taking place at other councils in Scotland. The footage from each meeting could be then archived on the council's YouTube channel for the duration of the remainder of that present council term for members of the public to access with ease. The costings for my proposals are attractive. By not renewing the contract with Public Eye, the council would save approximately £10,000 a year, and by replacing with a team of 2 or 3 staff to operate the audio-visual equipment for a period of 30 serviceable hours would cost, on my estimation, approximately £1,800 in remuneration costs, and annual savings of approximately, therefore, £8,200 a year. This would be a welcome addition in funding to the Democratic Services budget, which in turn could be reallocated to the Communications Department, the very department responsible for the organisation of the Armed Forces Fund Day biennial event, annual event, which I am reliably informed by the communications manager that it costs £10,200 plus staff costs each time to host every year. The £8,200 annual savings made would be taking us within a very small margin of having this popular event continue for the future. But I will put forward the separate proposal for the return of this day later in this meeting. Lastly, I wanted to address something directly to my own critics. Earlier this year, I took the decision to resign my membership of the 2 committees that I was a member of. One was due to a possible perceived conflict of interest, which I believed would compromise my ability to be completely impartial. The other was my membership of the Audit and Scrutiny Committee. My reasons were well publicised at that time, and since leaving Audit, I had been keeping track of the progress of the committee. During my time of absence from committee membership, Councillor Ireland in particular has been vocally critical of my decision, and to be clear, she has every right to be critical, and I would expect nothing less of her or any other councillor for doing so. It is right for councillors to challenge decisions made by other members, and I should not be immune from criticism, nor would I expect that. But my reasons were valid, and I believe that they were well-intentioned and based on upholding my own personal principles. Every councillor has a right to uphold his or her membership in accordance with upholding their own values. Going forward, I would be willing to make myself available once again for an...
MacDonald, can I just say extra 10 minutes?
One minute,
up, please.
Can I have 1 minute left? I did get interrupted by Councillor Devlin there.
Very briefly, please wind up.
I've got one paragraph left. Going forward, I would be willing to make myself available once again for an increase to 3 committee memberships in the future, but only if they should become webcasted for the press and public. Those committees would be Education, Audit and Scrutiny and Planning. So my message to any member of those committees who wishes for me to replace them on any of these is that I make it known to myself, to the Democratic Services Manager, and I'll be happy to make myself available and have the full Council consider that.
Okay, please wind up. I don't want. If I give you more time, everybody wants more than the standing order.
I'm just going to give my thanks to the Chamber. That's it.
That's how we can do without that. Can we then complete and then move on to Councillor Aiken then to formally second your motion? Thank you.
Can I just clarify, first of all, Provost, does Councillor Ireland's motion, does it actually sit alongside our motion or does it contradict our motion? Because obviously the way things are at the moment, it's only the full councils which are broadcast or webcast. Does Councillor Ireland, does her amendment basically just want to continue with full council and no other committees? Is that correct?
Well, that's my understanding, but I'm sure Councillor Ireland will make that clear when she moves her amendment.
Because strictly speaking, the wording of her motion is the council will continue to webcast meetings of the full council. We're not in disagreement with that. We want to continue the full council, but also some other committees.
I'm sure if Councillor Ireland was agreeing with you that all committees would be webcasted, she would have put that in her amendment. So I'm quite sure that everybody understands her amendment is for webcasting to continue for the full council only. Is that correct, Councillor Nance?
It's just to delete the motion before us and insert the amendment.
Okay, it's a valid amendment. So,
okay, so
would you like to second your own?
I would, yes. If I can make a short statement, if that's all right.
5 minutes to second your motion.
Okay, that's fine. Just Councillor MacDonald and myself feel that the Council should be committed to transparency. That's something which the administration councils don't seem to like very much. Audit Scotland, in their best value report, have stated the East Rhine Council is not doing enough to ensure transparency. At this moment in time, only the full council meetings, i.e. these meetings, are actually webcast. What Councillor MacDonald and myself are asking for is for other committees to be webcast for the benefit of transparency for people in East Rhine. This motion does not call for the Council to incur any additional cost. The motion calls only for the Council to use the webcasting facilities which it currently pays for already but does not use. As Councillor MacDonald has said, every year the Council pays for 30 hours of webcasting, but actually uses only around 12 hours out of those 30. So the Council have services that we pay for, but we don't currently use. My constituents in Barrhead may wish to follow the proceedings of the Audit and Scrutiny Committee or the Planning Committee without having to travel from Barrhead to Giffnock in order to actually watch proceedings. I would call upon my fellow councillors to support this motion for increased transparency at no additional cost.
Thank you very much, Councillor Aiken. Could I move now to Councillor Ireland to move the amendment, her amendment?
Yep, thank you very much. Just before I start, Councillor Aiken touched on the Audit Scotland report. There has been an update to the report which came before the Audit and Scrutiny Committee, which says that Audit Scotland are happy with the actions that have been taken in relation to that report, and they are now satisfied with transparency in the Council.
So webcast everything?
So just because you touched on it, so that report's actually been superseded by another report that came to the committee.
So webcast everything?
I wanted to ask for support for my amendment, which is East Renfrewshire Council will continue to webcast meetings of the full Council. I am fully in support of, and I agree with Councillor MacDonald, that transparency is very important. And as Chair of the Planning Committee, I was absolutely delighted to, with the help of the committee, to put through that planning objections and representations would be back online. That was very, very important to me to give local residents access to that. Now, one thing that struck me when I was doing the research for that was that it became abundantly clear very early on that we were in a position of being in the minority of councils then, that most councils actually did have their objections online. So it was quite an easy argument to make. But when I did my research for webcasting, that just did not. It was a completely different tale that came very, very quickly. East Renfrewshire Council is actually, we're ahead of the vast majority of councils in our webcasting. Only 6 councils out of 32 webcast the council meetings and all the committee meetings. 9% just do audio recording, and the vast majority, well, they do nothing at all.
That's not a good thing, was it?
I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that.
Councillor Aiken, please don't interrupt. Respect the speaker.
Yes, 72% of Scottish councils are not webcasting all council and committee meetings. We are actually one of the few councils that are webcasting our meetings, and I think that's why I've put the amendment in, that we continue that, because I think it has been a success. It was quite interesting that Renfrewshire Council actually discussed this in their September meeting, and it was voted 2-1 against introducing webcasting across all the committees. There were a couple of quotes from that. What they said was that they couldn't just justify the costs given the current unpredictability at the moment, and that also that they wanted to focus on frontline services, and it would be wrong to move that money into webcasting. Now, I know that the motion is talking about going into social media, but not one single council in the land just webcasts through social media at the moment, and I certainly wouldn't be recommending that we went down that route. If we webcast all our committees, there would be a substantial cost to us. It would be another 70 hours. Sorry, we'd be moving to 70 hours of webcasting, which is an extra 40 on top of what we already do. It's a lot of money. We're talking thousands and thousands of pounds in order to do this, and it's just not something that we can manage at the moment. There's an extra staffing implication as well. We would need 2 clerks at every single committee meeting. I just don't think that it's right at this point. Cost is too high. We're already ahead of the majority of other councils in what we do. I would ask you to support the amendment.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ireland, could I move to Councillor Lafferty, who seconded the amendment? Do you wish to speak to it, Councillor Lafferty?
Yes, very briefly, Provost. Initially, when this situation appeared, I was quite sympathetic to extending televising of committees and others. But I spoke to a gentleman on your right there, and he explained to me that additional staff would be required. If if resources are available to provide extra staff, I would rather provide them in another direction, perhaps to reinforce the Audit and Scrutiny Committee, who do hold the Council to account, who are chaired by a member of the opposition and have a majority of opposition members on that body. There's also, I'm sure, other help that could be sought and provided by the funds, such as additional pupil support assistants in education or home care support workers, roles that are desperately need additional support. I think that's a much more pressing call on any funding we have, rather than a vanity expedition of televising all our meetings.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lafferty. Does anybody else wish to contribute? Councillor Grant.
Can I ask, is it possible to know when somebody actually tunes in to listen or to these recorded things? Are we able to know, is there one person looking at it? Is there 100 people looking at it? It would be quite helpful to know if we're actually providing a service that actually anybody's paying any attention to.
Okay, I don't have the answer, but can I ask Mr Daly if he can elucidate?
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Grant, from the system that we have, we can actually produce reports which will identify the number of people who have viewed each meeting, both on a live basis but also on an archive basis, so we can see those who watched the meeting in real time, and we can also see who watched it after the event.
Thank you, Provost. That would be helpful. I would like to see that.
Sorry, yes, I can share that information with you.
It's not available to hand, but we'll let you know offline. Okay.
Thank you, Provost. Contrary to what's been said earlier on, there is a cost to offer some time to this. Perhaps the councillors might have been better advised to bring this motion to the budget setting meeting, where they could tell us and residents which service they prefer to cut, or alternatively which service they propose to increase charges to meet these costs. The costs have all been explained to us over the past few months, and although the costs are not high in the grand scheme of things, the costs still have to be met and can't just be written off. Can I also point out that prior to the social media sites kicking off in this a couple of months ago, I asked the viewing figures for May, and I got them, Barbara. And the figures for May was that there were 72 individual viewers and 111 viewers out of a population of 90,000. That's not a great deal. So once again, it's hardly big numbers for interested people, bearing in mind the costs. Can I also point out the last council meeting lasted 2.5 hours. But if we take an average of 2 hours, assuming we don't always get the rants that we did the last time, that would take up to 12 hours. If you add the cabinet meetings, and I don't know if the proposer and secretary of this motion are aware how many cabinet meetings there are, but to save them time, I'm looking up. There are 23 scheduled cabinet meetings for next year, and given that we can assume that the average about an hour, then that's more than 30 hours used up already. If either gentleman attended any of the meetings to which they refer, they would see for themselves that there is plenty of room in the public gallery, and as far as I can recall, the only meetings other than council meetings that attract a lot of interest is the special planning meetings, where there's a major development and a lot of local people are invited to attend to speak. But in saying all that, I do believe that if we're paying for 30 hours of webcasting, I think we should get the 30 hours. And to do that, I'd quite like to support the motion in as much as the 30 hours, but it goes beyond that. So I'm struggling to support that one.
Opportunity to sum up at the end, Councillor MacDonald. You have your 5 minutes. Councillor Swift.
Thank you, Provost. You know, a couple of people have said on both sides that transparency is very important, and I would agree with that. I would also found it interesting to say that Councillor Ireland felt that we were ahead of other councils, and that I think being ahead doesn't stop us going further ahead, frankly. In terms of costs, there are additional costs in staff, but these are more than offset, very substantially more than offset by the savings that would be delivered through using social media. Councillor Miller quoted the number who watched the May meeting, but that was before the council managed to alienate a large amount of residents around developing over green space. And you know, since that all kicked off, there has been a very substantial increase in the amount of people that actually are interested in what we do here and want to see what it is we're up to and are concerned. I've had lots of people approach me individually who've watched meetings and have been in the gallery and have found considerable disquiet, or have certainly shared their considerable disquiet as to what goes on here. So I think there is a renewed interest. It is a renewed interest out of an act of folly, perhaps, but there is a renewed interest, and we should satisfy that demand. Because this should be a transparent organisation. It should be a clear, honest, transparent organisation that seeks to be the best that it can be and seeks to share what happens in here with as many of the public as would like to know. And if that's one member, is one member better than it could be.
Other contributions? Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Provost. I feel if we've got 30 hours, why not use the 30 hours? My only concern is what happens when we get to, say, month 7, month 8, and we've actually maybe used up the 30 hours and we end up having 3 or 4 months of nothing at all. I don't know if there's a way to manage around that. Maybe so much every month would be a possibility, and if we run out, then we run out. That's my only concern, is that we get so much through the year and then we've got 3 or 4 months of absolutely nothing. Okay, thanks.
Any other contributions? No. Okay, can I move then to the vote? Sorry, nearly took away your 5 minutes there, Councillor MacDonald. I beg your pardon, you have 5 minutes to sum up and then we'll move to the vote.
Thank you, Provost. It was just really to answer some of the points that had been raised here by Councillor Ireland, Councillor Wallace, Councillor Miller, Councillor Swift. With regards to, first of all, Councillor Ireland's points that she raised about us and how we fit within the other 32 councils in terms of our performance in this particular matter. I don't subscribe to the notion that because all the other councils, or the councils that she mentioned that aren't signed up to any type of webcast, that this somehow means that we should not strive for quite a bit better than what we're actually achieving with this. It still doesn't take away the fact that we have 18 hours of unused time, and I find it quite disappointing. I would say that she's suggesting that we should discontinue as we are right now, just webcasting the full council meetings. It's clear that we're wasting quite a considerable amount of the money that we're spending on this. And what I'm saying going forward is, if we can get to a point, I think we really should engage the social media platforms for this. It's how people are communicating nowadays, of all different age groups. Okay, I agree that some of the older age groups aren't engaging on social media as much as the others, but let's face facts here that in order to actually look at the webcast anyway, you've got to go online. So there's a certain degree of needing to actually use a computer, regardless of whether we see it on a webcast or whether we see it on social media. The social media side of things is largely cost free in terms of how it's implemented. That is about the audiovisual gathering aspect of it, in terms of we wouldn't have to pay £10,200 a year in order to have a contract with anybody. But I accept the fact that we will need to obviously have staff that will be able to run the social media platforms and also gather the footage and possibly edit it for a broadcast to watch in a web archive. And with regards to Councillor Wallace's point about us running out and him having a worry and a concern with that, that is why I'm saying that within the existing contract, we will allow it to play out, make a random judgment on what we would need to be. I mean, we've got 18 hours there, roughly there or thereabouts. I think we can deduce from that 18 hours what we could apply to other committees that were probably maybe more contentious items that were, say, coming in front of planning. That might be something that we might want to look at broadcasting in this interim period. Looking forward to the permanent adoption of social media to broadcast our council meetings. And at that point, we wouldn't need to worry about a webcasting contract because we wouldn't be renewing it. I think this is the way forward, and I think we should embrace it. I think we would be league leaders in that respect. If we could get away from paying for this kind of thing and start to incorporate social media, I think it would be a very welcome thing. And the last thing, and this is really important, is I accept the fact that the viewing numbers are low. But that doesn't not mean at all that going forward, if we adopt the webcasting strategy for broadcasting, that number will stay the same. It will grow because this is how people are communicating. And we all know about all the sites that have been created recently with regards to the Save Shawwood site. I mean, now they've got over 2,000 followers on that page, and that's a single issue within Eastwood that has just come up in the last few months. And they've been formed very, very quickly. We've got 2,500 followers or something like that. That's just one issue. And clearly, if we had a webcasting format and platform to broadcast these meetings, it could be argued that we could be in the hundreds, if not the thousands, watching us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Can we now move to the vote? And we vote for the motion first and then the amendment. All those in favour of Councillor MacDonald's motion, please raise their hands now. Okay. All those in favour of the amendment, please raise their hands now. Okay. The result is 7 for the motion and 9 for the amendment. So the amendment is carried. Okay. Then to the next motion, which I think is motion number 2, which is motion again from Councillor MacDonald, I believe. Okay, Councillor MacDonald, same rules, 10 minutes for your motion.
Suffering from a bit of dry mouth here.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry, I beg your pardon. I just need you to read the motion first.
Of course.
In case there's an amendment.
Yep, absolutely. So, motion number 2, the East Renfrewshire Council reinstate armed forces, and I might just point this out, I omitted the words Fun Day, so it's the East Renfrewshire Council reinstate armed forces Fun Day within Rookenglen Park for the summer of 2019, and the amendments are made within the upcoming budget to accommodate the return of this much appreciated and worthwhile event. And I'm seconded by Councillor Aiken.
Okay, thanks for that. And that's quite an important amendment to the motion that's printed. So it's the Fun Day that you want reinstated for the armed forces. Okay, does everybody note that and happy to accept that amendment to the printed motion? Yeah, okay. So there is a seconder from Councillor Aiken. Yeah. Is there an amendment to that motion?
There's an amendment, Provost.
Councillor Buchanan.
Circulated.
Okay. Right, that amendment has now been circulated. I'll just give a minute or two to that for that to be given to the councillors. Okay, has everybody the chance to read the amendment from Councillor Buchanan? Is there a seconder to Councillor Buchanan's amendment? Councillor O'Kane? Okay. So again, over to yourself now, Councillor MacDonald, to move your own motion.
Thank you, Provost. Stopwatch is on. Armed Forces Day Fun Day was a family event held each year in Rookenglen Park from 2014 until 2017. Sadly, in October 2017, this council announced that it would be discontinued in 2018 due to budgetary constraints as part of the effort to plug funding gaps of £26 million over 3 years. I believe this was a move that was deeply regrettable. It met with a huge degree of public dissatisfaction and was seen as a disrespectful slap in the face to serving members of our armed forces, veterans of our armed forces, and to the wider community who support the valued contribution members of the armed forces make to our country and to maintaining our way of life. It is important to separate the armed forces and the work they undertake from the politicians who send them into combat operations that many, including myself, will sometimes disagree with. The serving members of our armed forces sign up to serve our country voluntarily. They are selfless people who make huge sacrifices to do a job that most of us would never consider doing. I give thanks for their selfless sacrifice away from their families, serving in stations throughout the world. Being a veteran myself who has served abroad, I know only too well how challenging the job can be. Sometimes I privately disagreed with the reasons as to whether an operation was justified or not, but like all other serving members, you get on with the job you are tasked with, follow orders, and leave the decision-making to the politicians. That's the military way. We should be thankful for the way in which members of the armed forces serve their country, whether they disagree or agree with the political decisions or not. It is truly selfless and shows remarkable strength and courage. The Allied forces fought off fascism and ended the Holocaust in World War II and liberated the Nazi concentration camps. Many of our residents of the Jewish faith are descendants of those very people who survived or were persecuted or killed in those camps. Dachau, Buchenwald, Mauthausen, liberated by the Americans, and Bergen-Belsen, liberated by the British, fighting together as one. Some 60,000 prisoners were discovered at Bergen-Belsen by the British 11th Armoured Division. Is it not right that we honour the memory of the armed forces who gave their lives in that noble and necessary cause, and that by doing so we continue to realise just how valuable a military can be when we need them most as a force for good? It is a valuable life lesson for our young people to celebrate the remarkable humanitarian interventions our military have fought in for the better of humanity. We need a chance not just to remember them, but we need an opportunity to continue to celebrate them. It is also important not to politicise this. It's easy to suggest that Armed Forces Fund Day promotes the Union flag due to the fact that at present Scotland and the Royal Regiment of Scotland remains part of the UK and the British Armed Forces respectively. But we need to get beyond that and not look at it from a unionist or a nationalist perspective. It should be highlighted that members of all of our armed forces have political opinions too, and unionists and nationalists serve alongside one another without favour or prejudice. They are military brothers and sisters first and foremost. The Fun Day event allowed the local community to show their appreciation for the British Armed Forces and the Scottish Regiment serving in our country and throughout the world. It was a wonderful event, bringing families predominantly with children from East Renfrewshire and beyond to take part in a variety of activities and enjoy some great entertainment, amusements and exhibitions, not to mention the many food vendors who catered to a local audience of over 6,000. This was the pinnacle event of the summer calendar in East Renfrewshire, and people here were naturally very proud of it and proud of being able to take part. The event held in 2017 was graced with some of the best weather we have had in the area in recent times, and truly was a remarkable day that I know everybody enjoyed so much. It was an event that truly made people feel like they were celebrating something truly worthwhile and letting our forces know how much they are appreciated. I am calling for this event to return to the 2019 calendar, and from discussion in my earlier motion on increased transparency, I believe we can find funding for this. I spoke earlier in the week with the communications manager. The cost of the event in 2017 was £10,200 plus staffing costs, and this came from the communications budget. I'm unclear as to the breakdown of this figure, as the communications manager was unable to provide this for me. Given that all the vendors, amusements, exhibitions and musical displays were there in a private capacity, I am so far unclear as to what specifically cost £10,200, and I would be keen to hear from anyone who can enlighten me on the costings of this. But beyond that, I believe I can find funding for this, and as far as staffing is concerned, I believe that we could look at bringing in volunteers to assist with part of the organisation on the day. I've already highlighted an £8,200 savings that can be made from stopping the webcast contract with Public Eye, and I believe we could reallocate this money from the Democratic Services budget to the communications budget. Beyond that, I'm sure that we could find an additional £2,000 to make up the difference from somewhere. Councillors, I want to be part of a council that finds solutions, and I believe if we collectively come together as a group, we can find funding solutions to bring this back for the summer calendar. I would therefore be willing to become part of a cross-party working group from all the political parties and none to try to facilitate this event's return. Let us bring this back to Rook and Glen Park in the summer of 2019. We can do it if we put our heads together on this. The public overwhelmingly want it back, and this is a great way for us all to give thanks to our military, all the while having a great day of fun for the families of East Renfrewshire. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor MacDonald. Can I pass to Councillor Aiken to second?
Second.
anything? No.
Yes.
No, no.
This would be a very short statement, a fraction of Councillor MacDonald's statement, but just to say that I appreciate the financial climate in which we're operating. We're all aware the Scottish Government is disproportionately cutting local authority budgets. However, the Armed Forces Fund Day has been a worthwhile and highly anticipated fixture in the East Rend calendar. The event brings together communities and highlights the past and present sacrifices of our armed forces. At this present time, there are young people from East Rend risking their lives daily for our country's armed forces. I would simply call upon my fellow councillors to support this motion to bring back the Armed Forces Day Fund Day for 2019. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Aiken. Can I pass to Councillor Buchanan for his amendment?
Thank you, Provost. Yeah, I mean, I was disappointed in some of the comments that have been alluded to there in an attempt to try and make it somewhat political, which clearly this isn't by any manner of means. Colleagues, the issue in front of us, and we have put forward, is the East Renfrewshire Council will continue to recognise Armed Forces Day, as we did this year, and continue to support our service veterans 365 days a year. Let me highlight some of the things that this Council does on a daily basis for many of our serving personnel and veterans. This Council recognises the sacrifice that of local residents who have been and still are members of the Armed Forces in a dignified and respectful manner, and at the same time provides year-round support to help those who have served in as many practical ways as we can. To mark Armed Forces Day on June 25th, there was a flag-raising ceremony at the Council headquarters, attended by the Provost, elected members, local dignitaries, as well as past and present members of the Armed Forces. With 2018 being the 100th anniversary of the armistice, there was an added poignancy and depth to this year's commemorations. In the run-up to November 11th, libraries across the Council area worked with local schools on educational projects surrounding the 100th anniversary of the end of hostilities. Library staff organised displays on local soldiers who had died in the First World War. Artwork created by local children and adults groups was shown, and 10 life-size perspex silhouettes representing fallen soldiers were put on display as part of a nationwide project. On Remembrance Sunday itself, the Provost, other members and senior officials attended the 3 main remembrance events held across East Renfrewshire. East Renfrewshire Council is proud to have signed a community covenant with the Armed Forces to build on the good relations between the Armed Forces community, the Council and our partner organisations. Working with these partners, we have committed to raising awareness and understanding of the issues affecting service personnel and improve access to a range of support agencies. This includes access to information on housing, benefits and healthcare. In addition, the Council has designated a Veteran Support Advisor to ensure those who have served get the help they need whenever they ask, and the Provost and our Armed Forces as our Armed Forces Veterans Champion. Our Veterans Advisor has delivered training to a number of our Customer First staff so that they are aware of the issues facing ex-Forces personnel and can offer the best advice. Armed Forces Day has, in the past, was marked for a number of years by a family fun day at Brook and Glen. In 2017, the cost of this event was, as had been mentioned, $10,200 to stage. But that didn't include staff costs. It also didn't include the contribution from the Ministry of Defence. The event was organised at a point in the life of the Council when we employed an event staff, and since then budget restrictions mean we no longer employ these event staff, but looking instead to support our communities, our armed forces, and to organise their own community events, such as we have seen recently in some of our bids. By the time of the last event in Brook and Glen in 2017, it had become increasingly difficult to attract also the interest from the armed forces themselves. The pressures on our personnel in those forces were becoming more intense and more difficult, and there were difficulties in getting vehicles, bands, and some of the stalls that were set up lacked relevance to the armed forces. So there were a number of factors that also were taken into account, as well as the ongoing costs and the delivery of services that we can provide on a year-round basis. And so as a result, the Council took the decision to mark Armed Forces Day in a different way, but an entirely fitting way, and that service continues day in and day out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Buchanan. Councillor O'Kane, do you wish to say anything to second that amendment?
Thank you, Provost. I think just to perhaps expand on the point that this council is absolutely committed to Armed Forces Day. I think that is, I think everyone across the chamber would want to associate themselves with the comments about our serving personnel and about our veterans and about everything they have done and continue to do for our country. I think it's important to acknowledge that in politics we have to make difficult choices often, budgetary choices. We have to consider what we can afford and what we can't as a council. I would much rather that we were investing in the day-to-day support for our veterans and for our armed forces, as we have heard about from the Leader of the Council through the support officer who works with Customer First and others. We've also funded CAB, Community Citizen Advice, to deliver a number of projects around serving personnel and veterans to ensure that they have access when they return to Civvy Street to continue to live a full life with employment and access to all the things that they deserve. So whilst the Family Fund Day is a great thing, we've heard already that our staffing mix has changed within comms. We don't have the same level of support that we had from the Ministry of Defence. So I think it is absolutely right when you take those budgetary decisions to say we're going to have a very respectful flag-raising ceremony here on Armed Forces Day, which I hope the mover and seconder of the motion will be able to attend next year to see how it's done, because it is the raising of the flag, a number of speeches, time to talk to veterans, a cup of tea, time for them to speak to our advisor, time for them to speak to elected members. It is a very dignified and respectful event, and I think that is open as well and can be open to the public to come along, just as all of our flag raisings are. So I think if it's a choice between, as I say, a family fund day in Glen, which we would all love to have, or continuing to invest and support in veteran services, I know which choice I would make.
Thank you very much, Councillor O'Kane. Anybody else wish to contribute? Councillor Grant.
Thank you, Provost. I really do feel that we need to focus on a full year of support to armed forces. It's very important that anybody in the forces or anybody who's been in the forces get all the support that they can from the Council. Since the MOD is not in a position to come forward with the kind of support that we've had before, I would honestly suggest that we really do think about a 24/7 help for forces and their past. I think that's much more important.
Thank you for that. Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Provost. As you know, I represent the Council on the Lowland Reserve Forces Cadet Association, and every meeting I go to, it's all about cuts. And they're having a terrible time getting the money to support and recruit our people into the forces. Now, what I would say, and since I started doing this, one of the great things I think we should all be proud of that we have in this council, and we share it with, I believe it's Inverclyde and Renfrewshire, and that is our support officer that we have for the veterans, who does extraordinary work. One of the downsides, or one of the negatives I feel about the Armed Forces Day, is it gives the impression that all is well. And all is not well, as we know. I'm sure anyone that's got a surgery here has maybe had one or two veterans appear, having concerns about homelessness, having concerns about mental health, etc. And that is, as I say, I feel one of the downsides of the fun day. It is a fun day, there's no question about it, and it's a wonderful day to be able to celebrate what the forces do for us. But the downside is that if the MOD is having difficulty in finding the money to do this, and I would rather, to be honest, see that we continue to invest in our liaison officer that we have, who I think does some tremendous work, and it's celebrated. I think we are the only council, along with Renfrewshire and Inverclyde, who actually do this in the whole of Scotland. I would be very supportive of any money that's saved from not having that fun day is further invested into anything we can do to support our veterans. Thank you.
Councillor Wallace, I would say the lady's name is Jane Duncan. It's worth recognising the work that she does. It's employed jointly by all the Renfrewshire councils, but she is based in her own Customer First, and I echo your comment. She does an absolutely superb job. Any other comments from councillors? Councillor Swift.
Thank you, Provost. It's one of these things that I'm sure Councillor MacDonald wouldn't see it as an either-or motion, either as in we stop supporting our veterans through Jane Duncan. I'm pretty sure that we could carry on doing this. I would like to see the Council re-engage with the Ministry of Defence to see whether they would be willing to support the event. And if they were willing, I would like to see us support it, because I agree that the actual support, the tangible support that we can help veterans to access is tremendously important. I also think doing something that is publicly and obviously engaging, because thousands of people used to come, is something that the Council should value, and actually it was a tremendously popular event. So I think it's about elevating the social standing and social status of those who are both serving and their families. And I think to do something like that is a worthwhile cause, and it is small beer, £10,000. We can find £10,000 if we wanted to. It's about political will. Let's not pretend it isn't.
Councillor Swift, any other contributions? No? Can we go for your 5-minute summing up, Councillor MacDonald?
I'm fine. I don't have anything else to say.
We'll go straight to the vote then. All those in favour of Councillor MacDonald's amendment, please... Sorry, motion. Beg your pardon. Please raise their hand now. And all those in favour of Councillor Buchanan's amendment, please raise their hand now.
Five for the motion, 9 for the amendment.
Okay, the result is 5 for the motion and 9 for the amendment. So the amendment is carried. Okay. Can we move on then to our last motion this evening, which is motion number 5? And can I ask Councillor O'Kane to move that motion, to read out the motion?
Thank you, Provost. This is a fairly lengthy motion, so I will try and get through it. East Renfrewshire Council is rightly proud of its efforts to tackle discrimination in all its forms. We celebrate our greatly diverse community, including the largest Jewish population in Scotland. We condemn racism and anti-Semitism wherever it is found. As part of Council's ongoing equalities work, we resolve to join with the UK and Scottish Government and the major political parties in the UK in signing up to the internationally recognised International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance (IHRA) guidelines on anti-Semitism, which defines anti-Semitism thus: anti-Semitism is a certain perception of Jews which may be expressed as hatred towards Jews. Rhetorical and physical manifestations of anti-Semitism are directed towards Jewish or non-Jewish individuals and or their property, towards Jewish community institutions and religious facilities. The guidelines highlight manifestations as including calling for, aiding or justifying the killing or harming of Jews in the name of a radical ideology or an extreme view of religion, making mendacious, dehumanising, demonising or stereotypical allegations about Jews, as such are the power of Jews as collective, such as especially but not exclusively the myth about a world Jewish conspiracy or Jews controlling the media, economy, government or other social institutions. Accusing Jews as a people of being responsible for real or imagined wrongdoing committed by a single Jewish person or group, or even acts committed by non-Jews. Denying the fact, scope, mechanisms, for example the gas chambers, or intentionality of the genocide of the Jewish people at the hands of the National Socialist Germany and its supporters and accomplices during World War II, more commonly known as the Holocaust. Accusing the Jews as a people or Israel as a state of inventing or exaggerating the Holocaust. Accusing Jewish citizens as being more loyal to Israel or to the alleged priorities of Jews worldwide than to the interests of their own nations. Denying the Jewish people their right to self-determination, for example by claiming that the existence of the State of Israel is a racist endeavour. Applying double standards by requiring of it behaviour not accepted or demanded of any other democratic nation. Using the symbols and images associated with classic anti-Semitism, for example claims of killing Jews, of Jews killing Jesus or blood libel, to characterise Israel or Israelis. Drawing comparisons of contemporary Israeli policy to that of the Nazis. Holding Jews collectively responsible for the actions of the State of Israel. And Council resolves to restate its condemnation of all forms of racism in all its manifestations and adopts the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism as the working model for challenging and confronting incidents of this form of racism.
I have a seconder for that motion, Councillor Merrick. Anybody against or any amendments to that motion? Can I take it that everybody is supportive of it, and we just take it as passed, as unanimously passed by the Council? Okay, thank you very much. Moving on then to item number 7, which is questions to conveners. And we have a couple of questions this evening from Councillor Swift. Can I just remind councillors, there's no debate around these. Councillor Swift will be allowed to read his question, get an answer, but will be allowed one supplementary question if you have one. And then we move on in each occasion. Okay, Councillor Swift.
Thank you, Provost. This relates to the consultation on the leisure centre and its sites, and it is to Councillor Buchanan, as you said. Having consulted with an academic, I have been advised in considerable detail and against a range of criteria which the consultation failed, and the bottom line is that the Council's consultation was quite blatantly biased. That's easy for me to say, I guess. Can the Leader of the Council please advise why the Council both constructed and disseminated a biased consultation?
Buchanan.
Thank you, Provost. Thank you, Councillor Swift. Happy to respond. I will be brief. Recent conversation with Councillor Mullery suggested that why use 10 words when I could use 2. What I will say, I disagree with your opinion. You're perhaps not surprised at that. The consultation was not biased. We have previously discussed many aspects of the consultation at previous meetings, and I would also like to point out that we have recently also received notification from the Information Commissioner in terms of some of the discussions we had around GDPR, advising that the Council was compliant with all data protection obligations during the consultation. But as I say, the main aspect is I disagree with your opinion. I don't believe that the consultation was biased.
Thank you, Councillor Buchanan. Do you have a supplementary question, Councillor Swift? Remember, I'm not a statement, a question.
Indeed, I have a statement, but I'm going to clarify it on tiny little.
A further question.
It's a question, but it needs clarification. The Council has 1 created, 2 disseminated a biased survey. It hid pertinent information from the public. That's 3 issues. It reported the consultation results in a slanted way. That's 4 issues, and used a survey with questionable methodology to highlight which sites ought to be prioritised. But I'll come back to that. So the question I have is, does Councillor Buchanan agree with me, given those 5 issues, that we need to restore faith in this Council, and that we should consider whether we have the right people at the head of this Council, and I mean both the Leader of the Council and the Chief Executive?
First of all, I clearly disagree with you. I think we have excellent staff in this Council, as I have stated on numerous occasions. The way the Council is held and the regard that people have for this Council is quite clear, and that has been a delivery over numerous years. So quite clearly, I think your comments are, quite frankly, atrocious in terms of the points that you seem to be trying to make, simply because you did not like the outcome of a consultation which quite clearly was not biased, nor indeed flawed. The consultation was a consultation, and information from it will be utilised when a decision requires to be made. But I find your comments absolutely deplorable in relation to the staff who serve us particularly well and have done over several years.
Thank you, Councillor Buchanan. Can we move on to your second question, Councillor Swift?
Sorry, I better put my microphone on. Do you want me to start again, or is it okay? Okay. I've now been waiting since my request on the 31st of October for a detailed methodology into the report that recommended Shawwood as first choice, narrowly nudging Broome Park into second place as the preferred site for a new Eastwood Leisure Centre. Some of the findings were at best counterintuitive and at worst appeared ridiculous to me. Can the Leader of the Council please advise why we would spend hundreds of thousands of pounds on reports from consultants that have, in my and others' opinions, highly dubious findings, and those same consultants will not share their methodology so we can understand how they arrived at their questionable findings?
Again, happy to respond, Provost. First of all, consultants are used on a number of occasions for different aspects of the work that we do and the services we provide. They do not make decisions. We do. We utilise the information with which we are provided and we decide whether or not to accept that. In relation to the methodology used by Turner Townsend, who are a well-known and respected firm, I understand that you have been provided with further information with regards to methodology.
A supplementary question.
I do indeed, and yes, I have been provided with information. I have not been given an answer, I may say. In terms of, it's probably best, can I go into a little bit of detail on this?
Question is the key thing. As long as it culminates in a question, this is question.
That's fine.
When I go with my grandchildren, I say to them, "Put your listening ears on." I'm struggling to say this any more clearly. Do you have a question?
Yes, I do. There are 5 domains that were evaluated within this, and then within them there are subdomains. There are no detailed criteria that explain the values attributed or attached to these subdomains. This is a real problem because what we have in effect is a numerical answer to a subjective question, and all that has happened is that there is no decent methodology to this whatsoever that is able to be understood. So my question, I guess I have to go to that because I've got lots of information here. But anyway, what concerns does the Leader have with the report as was provided by Turner and Townsend?
I don't have any concerns with the report as provided. I'm sure it doesn't surprise you. We will have the report. We have the report from Turner Townsend. In due course, we will bring forward a report which will contain information from a number of areas, from a number of consultants, and when all of that information is garnered and we have had time to look at it all, in conjunction with our consultation, in conjunction with the views that have been expressed to elected members, we will then make a decision and decide on the outcome. So I'm more than happy with all of the information that we will receive, and we will pay credence to it. Ultimately, as I mentioned earlier, any decision will be taken by elected members.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Buchanan. I think we can move on. We have some statements from conveners or representatives of joint boards. I think Councillor Bamforth wishes to make a statement.
Thank you, Provost. Our last integration joint board meeting was held on the 28th of November. We heard about the health and social care partnerships planning for this winter and some of the local work being carried out to reduce emergency admissions and hospital stays. Our local team has led on some changes across the Greater Glasgow and Clyde area, but it's also open to learning from other neighbouring health and social care partnerships. We were shown some of the most up-to-date performance management information for this area of work, and we're pleased to see that East Renfrewshire continues to perform relatively well. The resource released from changes to NHS complex care has allowed the Integration Joint Board the opportunity to invest in Bonneton House. We received an update at our meeting on the development of a 6-bed rehabilitation and recuperation unit within Bonneton House. We also learnt about work with local hospices to develop beds at Bonneton to support people at the end of life who want to return to East Renfrewshire but cannot go home. Thank you.
As I say, these statements for noting. I believe Councillor Merrick wishes to make a statement.
Thank you, Provost. As the convener for Community Services and Community Resources, I want to today recommend the latest business plan for East Renfrewshire Culture and Leisure Trust. Members will be aware that item comes later on in this evening's agenda. As part of the business planning this year, the Board attended a strategy away day on the 23rd of October. We visited the Peak, the recent indoor complex at the heart of the Stirling Sports Village. Operated by the local Leisure Trust, the Peak was the biggest single development for sport and leisure in Stirling for over 30 years, with an investment of £27.3 million. This was funded by Stirling Council and Sports Scotland. The Board were interested in learning about the pioneering development which was shaped by the Council's ambition and vision for sport and recreation for the community and by modern design and environmental practice. The Board also visited the National Swimming Academy's 50-metre pool at the University of Stirling Sports Centre to understand how such facilities can support the demand for recreational public swimming, lessons, club activity and events. The afternoon comprised a business planning session discussing the key initiatives for the coming year and planning and management of our core operations. The plan has also informed the independent finance and business review of the Trust, which considered the underlying assumptions made at the inception of the Trust in light of the first 3 years' trading and performance, and reviews of the support services required by the Trust and provided by the Council. The business plan was discussed by the Board at our meeting on the 4th of December. It articulates the vision for the balance of commercial and charitable activities. It was wholeheartedly endorsed by the Board and I recommend it to the Council. Finally, on a more festive note, we had the pleasure of attending the Trust's Christmas show, Jack and the Beanstalk 2, The Return of the Farmer. Together with invited guests, including many of our care-experienced young people, it was a wonderful evening, and I recommend it to those of you yet to book your annual panto. Oh yes, I do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Merrick. I won't tell my grandchildren about that one. And the last statement this evening from Councillor Lafferty.
Thank you, Provost. The Association of Public Service Excellence, APSI for short, is a not-for-profit local government body working over 300 councils throughout the United Kingdom, promoting excellence in public services. APSI is the foremost specialist in local authority frontline services and operates one of the UK's largest research programmes in local government policy and frontline service delivery matters. The APSI Performance Networks were pleased to announce the winners and finalists of the Most Improved and Best Performer categories for the Performance Awards for 2018. The award ceremony took place at the Performance Network seminar at the Grand Hotel, so I'm told, I wasn't there, and in Blackpool on the evening of Thursday, the 6th of December 2018. The APSI Chief Executive, Paul O'Brien, said APSI's data benchmarking service allows local government to recognise those top-performing local councils alongside those who are striving to continuously improve their frontline services. Excuse me. Right across local government, our member councils are driving forwards on service improvements and placing quality at the heart of what they do. These worthy finalists are showing a real commitment to those services which we all value at neighbourhood level. 8 services from East Renfrewshire were nominated as finalists. That is tremendous. However, beyond that, in the category of roads, highways and winter maintenance, the Council won the award for Most Improved Local Authority. I just want, the heads of services said they wanted to express their thanks for all the hard work you have put in during the last year to improve our services to the public and improve our network, as evidenced by figures from Scots and the Council's own reference. The APSI Award for the Most Improved Council in terms of performance for roads, highways and winter gritting was well deserved, a great achievement and a team effort. The Director added we were up against stiff competition from across the UK and this was therefore a major achievement. I hope we as a Council can express our appreciation for the workers, for their past efforts and for what they'll be undoubtedly doing over the Christmas and New Year holiday 24/7 in keeping our roads passable.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lafferty. I'm sure we do all endorse the hard work of all our council employees who will be working over the festive period, and we should acknowledge and thank them for that. Item number 9 is the Provost engagement, which is simply for noting. And item 10, management rules, household waste recycling centres. Again, I'm happy to take any questions or comments, should anybody have any? Councillor Swift?
Just one question. Just one question. It relates to rules of admission. Do we know what proportion of people have not got a photo ID driver's licence?
I don't know. If it's any help, I don't have one. I'm of an age. I've got a very old pink one, which I rather treasure, but I don't know. Okay. If it's available, we'll let you know offline. Okay, you may.
I mean, my concern is that there are, in England, there are more than 9 million people who don't have a passport. I don't know what, there isn't the information for Scotland. So there are people who will have no photo ID. Like yourself, you have a passport, but lots of people won't have either a passport or a photo ID on their driver's licence. So are we not going to let people into the local tip because they don't have a photo ID?
Okay, can you reassure Councillor Swift, Mr Cahill?
Provost, if I can just come in on that, I know what it says in the report, but just to clarify, would prefer photographic ID. However, if ID can be produced in another manner or form, it will be acceptable.
Happy if you want to. We'll note it in a minute and try and amend whatever pros we need to amend then, okay? Councillor Convery.
Thank you very much, Provost. Can I just to draw your attention to page 60? It's at the bottom. It's the offensive language and antisocial behaviour. Well, this rule is very clear in what is not acceptable. I feel that it doesn't go far enough in making it clear the consequences. As you'll all agree, our frontline staff should be our first priority. Can I just make an addition, if possible, and it's just a small one, that can we add that violence towards any member of staff will not be tolerated and will be dealt with accordingly? It was just if we can have that wee bit added in there.
Well, I'm happy to, if there's a consensus, if we can strengthen it, we will do. You okay with that?
Happy to look at it and to strengthen it.
Okay. Councillor MacDonald.
Just wanted to go back to Councillor Swift's point and also what Mr Cahill was saying. Am I to understand that it is actually the rule now that one needs a photographic ID to enter these recycling facilities? Because as I understand it, and I have been advised from Customer First, is that what is required when I go up is a council tax bill or a V5 for my vehicle that I'm going with, that I've, because one of the things that they ask you on the phone is they ask you for your registration plate number, and I've been advised that I can either take a council tax bill or a V5 for the vehicle that I'm driving to prove that I am a resident of East Renfrewshire. So I just want some clarity on that. I mean, I know what you would prefer, but in terms of what is the status quo and what is required, I just want to get clarification.
Okay, how do we ensure that those using our tips are local residents and not commercial companies or whatever from elsewhere?
Yeah, that's correct. The difference is, I think you're talking about vans. So if it's a van, we would ask for the registration plate and again proof of your residency and proof of the van.
Okay, just to respond to that, on the occasions that I have gone up there, and I don't identify myself as a councillor when I call up, so I do it just to kind of gauge as to what is being asked of other people, is that it's not a van, I've got a car, and I'm being asked for a registration plate number of that vehicle by Customer First, and I've been advised by them that a council tax bill and a V5 would suffice, just to make it clear.
You don't need to have any Customer First access to take a car up. You can take any car up at any time as long as you can prove your residency. You don't need to go through, book it in at all. It's a random check. We won't check you every time, but it's a random check when you're in there.
Councillor Gilbert, do you wish to ask a question?
Yes, please. Yes, it's just to clarify the reason why you actually have to use or to have some means of identification.
It's due to the fact that these sites are being misused either by commercial trading or people or by residents out with the council. We have quite a lot of people coming from Renfrewshire or Ayrshire. We did have, and now we're just making sure that it's our own council taxpayers that use our own sites.
Councillor Merrick.
Just a quick question. Paragraph 19, page 63, we talk about exclusion orders. And the council may have said that a person can be excluded, but is it the case where various companies could just send different employees up? Have we got scope for banning persistently bad companies rather than individual employees of particular companies?
No commercial waste is allowed in any of the sites, so you're not allowed in as a commercial entity. It has to be a resident that comes to the site, so we would not allow any commercial waste into our sites.
I was imagining a company sending employees up with vans dumping waste on behalf of a company, but they wouldn't necessarily say it was a company.
Yes, Councillor.
I think I got from the report that the exclusion orders were against very rare occasions when there's verbal abuse or even threatening behaviour towards our staff and other users of the facility. And that's the purpose of the exclusion powers in the report.
I'm sure you're probably right, but I'm happy to get confirmation that that is the case.
Yes, that is the case. If there's persistent abuse, we quite often get mild and then they're asked to leave at that time, but they can come back at a later time. But that would be persistent abuse of the site that would have an exclusion zone order raised.
Okay, well, as management rules, I say they are open to review at any time. It's not something standing, set in stone that we can't change. Are you comfortable with the changes and the comments? Okay, can we accept it and move on? Item 11 is the amendment to contract standing orders. Again, I think a fairly straightforward report, but I'm happy to take any questions that anybody may have. Councillor Smith.
Promised. I would like to see a change to clause 19, page 66, for work below 50,000 reduced to £10,000, and it's in the appendix. It's on page 98 and 99. So one is to reduce the 50,000 to £10,000. That's clause 19. And that's the bottom of 98. And I would also like to see added a log of the awards made with an explicit objective for the award and a little bit more detail on the rationale for why it was why this is being sought, the budget versus the actual spend, and a log of the company. We've clearly, I think, in my humble opinion, we have not used consultancy as well as we perhaps ought, and I would like a little bit more detail on our use of consultants.
Okay, Mr. Mahin, do you have any views on whether we need to change the price from 50,000 to 10,000?
Thank you, Provost. The current figure has obviously been chosen to reflect business efficacy, operational efficiency, as well as putting an appropriate level of scrutiny on the operational business of directors within their own delegation. This figure has been taken from assessment across the board of consultancy awards made over the preceding number of years, and obviously consultation with the various officers who are involved in operational processes across the council at large. So that's where the figure is drawn from. It's considered to give an appropriate balance between, as I say, efficiency of operations and the appropriate level of scrutiny. But it's entirely for members to decide whether that's an appropriate level or whether they would seek and be happy with an amendment to that figure.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mahan, for that background note on the rationale behind the figure. You're clearly moving an amendment, or you're suggesting an amendment, Councillor. Do you wish to move an amendment, and if you do you have a seconder? Can we have your precise amendment then? That would be very helpful.
I would also like to add that a log of awards is made and is made publicly available. That log would include the following fields: an explicit objective for that award, the rationale that sits behind it, the budget spend or the budget allocated, the actual spend when that is concluded, and which company. If somebody would like me to repeat that, I'd be very happy to do so. Yeah, of course. I would like to add a log of awards made, and there are some fields that I would like to populate that. The explicit objective of the potential award of consultancy, the rationale behind it, so a little bit more detail, the budget that's been allocated, the actual spend, and which company. So 5 fields of information, and I'd like that in the public domain. As well as reducing the ceiling to £10,000.
Okay, and we have a seconder from Councillor MacDonald. Is there anyone who wishes to move the paper as unamended? Councillor Devlin. To that? No, you're just moving the paper. Okay. Do you have a seconder? And Councillor Ireland, okay. Do you wish to speak to it and say anything, or just simply move the paper? The paper. Okay. Right. Yep. Yes, you're allowed to speak to your amendment, I'm advised.
If we look at I'm taking 2 specific examples in mind. One, there was a consultant's report that remained hidden, and we had no idea what it said, and it was about the redesign of Eastwood Park. And actually that was pertinent to the Shawwood consultation, or the consultation on the leisure centre. If elected members had been aware of the contents of that, that might have changed some of the debate and the discussion and the consultation itself, frankly. So that's one good reason why we should have a log. In terms of the actual contents of the other Turner and Townsend, the site options appraisal process, there are 5 fields with 3 subfields, and I think I explained that very briefly. That the problem with that was that there was no criteria, no specific criteria around any of it. And I did get additional information from Mr. Cahill, but there was no information around how they scored things. So for example, if the subdomains are scored with descriptions that meet a score, for example, 0 equals no possibility of car parking, and no bus routes pass within a mile, that would get a score of 0. But if it was but if it had fabulous infrastructure, there was car parking and there was bus routes, then it might score 5. And somewhere in between, there would be criteria. There'd be specific criteria upon which people could objectively understand exactly what's going on. And my problem is, and it's been suggested to me, and that's why I brought this here, why I want the change. Frankly, it looks uncannily like there is an extraordinarily subjective piece of work with no subdomains, no criteria, no descriptions that you accord scores to, and I think that's a really pretty poor piece of work, and it's pretty poor that we accepted it, and it's pretty poor that we put it in the public domain, frankly. So I would like a greater handle on what we do and how we use consultants. Somebody put it to me, it looks quite likely, given the subjectivity, that somebody chose what the outcome was, told them what the outcome was, and they went away and delivered the outcome that we wanted. That's what it looks like. So I would like a much greater handle on how we use consultants.
I'm not quite sure you were talking about contract standing orders there with all of that, but nevertheless I'll do it. You had a seconder from Councillor MacDonald. Do you wish to say anything, Councillor MacDonald?
I just want to add my weight to that obviously Jim's role within audit and scrutiny, I welcome him bringing this. I think we need more scrutiny of this particular kind of thing. And the opposite of that is I'm somewhat disappointed that another member of audit and scrutiny is actually calling for the status quo. I think this is something that we could really enhance our ability to ask questions on this particular regard, and I find it disappointing that we have a seconder on the other side that doesn't want this to happen, and they happen to be a member of audit and scrutiny. It's quite telling.
changes to the status quo, it's worth noting. Okay, just for the sake of accuracy.
Enhanced changes.
Councillor Miller, are you looking to speak?
Yes, thank you.
Sorry, I beg your pardon, I've got to invite Councillor Devlin and then Councillor Ireland if they wish to speak to the amendment. Do you wish to say in Councillor Ireland?
No, it was just to reiterate what you said, that the changes are in here to it and they seem quite self-explanatory. I don't really need to go on any more than that. Quite comfortable with what's in here, the changes that are being made.
Councillor Miller.
Thank you very much, Provost. I eventually get to speak. After having heard Mr Mann doesn't have a problem with it, if we want to make this more transparent, I don't see the problem. There is no problem with the extra we're asking for.
Contributions? Councillor Buchanan.
Yeah, thanks, Provost. I think my concern is not so much around the figure, it's the additional work that potentially might well be generated by bringing it down to 10,000, which I think is a significant problem. Because we already see, and as much as I would anticipate that a lot of the work that gets done is in excess of 50,000, to bring it down to the 10,000 figure, I think will take up a significant amount of staff's time. And that would be a particular concern that I would have, because again we are taking staff away from delivering many of the services. There are already significant pressures on staff, and I think that will be a significant problem, because I certainly don't think that there will be many contracts coming in at that level. I think the vast majority would be significantly higher. All of that work can be called in at present. It could be looked at, and I'm sure as audit and scrutiny do, and any of the information is also subject to FOI. So I don't think that the issues in relation to any methodology that any company might use are relevant to the fact of the cost that they may well be charging. I think they are two separate entities. These are contract standing orders in terms of value. To bring that lower, I think will give us potentially significant staffing concerns, which will be an ongoing problem, and potentially highlights an issue that we may have with going out to tender on a number of issues. And I think we are potentially storing up problems for ourselves by going to a level which, quite frankly, would not necessarily be deemed as being significant in terms of the bigger picture and the contracts we are likely to award.
Thank you, Councillor Buchanan. Councillor Aiken.
Just to respond to Councillor Buchanan, can I just remind you, Councillor Buchanan, that we're talking about public money here. You're concerned about staff being too busy. We're talking about public money, taxpayers' money here, so maybe bear that in mind.
Right, anybody who's not spoken, Councillor Conway.
It's just a brief question to Mr Mahan. It was just to find out, because I'm a bit kind of confused. Do you feel that there is an issue, there would be an issue, a significant issue, to bring it down to the 10,000 or not?
All I can say is, in terms of volume of work, I think the comments regarding the number of consultancy contracts in excess of £10,000 is probably accurate. There is a significant number where that is the cost. What obviously would then happen is it would typically be treated in the absence of the £50,000 level, with the introduction of a £10,000 level, as a quick quote process, as would normally be the case for different types of contract at that financial level. So it will entail a degree of process that's not there at the present moment in time, and that's taking aside any of the other issues around the log that Councillor Swift talks of.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr Mahan. Any other councillors who haven't spoken wish to add anything? Okay, can I invite Councillor Swift to sum up, because you are putting forward a formal amendment? Okay, we'll just move to the vote then. Yeah, it might be useful just Mr Daly has, I hope, carefully copied all of this down, so just so everybody's clear what we're voting on.
Thank you, Provost. And Councillor Swift, you can keep me right if this isn't correct, but initially you would like to see the levels in Clause 19 reduced from 50,000 to 10,000, and you would like the introduction of a log which will show the details of the consultant awards made, the log to contain 5 fields. That's the explicit objective of the area, the rationale behind it, the budget allocated, the actual spend and details of the company, and that to be publicly available. Is that correct?
That's it. Perfect.
Okay. And that's seconded by Councillor MacDonald. The amendment by, I think was it Councillor Ireland, beg your pardon? Councillor Devlin, beg your pardon, seconded by Councillor Ireland, is that the report as presented to the Council this evening be approved.
So as we're clear in the vote, the motion is now from Councillor Swift, and the amendment is from Councillor Devlin. So all those in favour of Councillor Swift's motion as seconded by Councillor MacDonald, please show. Okay. All those in favour of Councillor Devlin's amendment, please raise their hand.
These two vote. They vote?
Are you abstaining?
Right, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Okay. So what's the?
So 7, 8 for the motion, 7 for the amendment.
Okay, so there are 8 for the motion and 7 for the amendment. So your motion is carried. So first for you, Councillor Swift. Well done. Can we to item number 12, which is the Culture and Leisure Trust Business Plan for 2019-20. The report is seeking approval for the business plan, and of course subject to the money being voted to cover the business plan at the budget meeting on the 29th of February, I believe it is. Okay, so the business plan is open for question, debate and whatever, but as I say, it is a business plan which has to be resourced at the budget meeting. Councillor Swift. No, I'm advised not. They are allowed to, they've declared an interest, they're allowed to stay here and they're allowed to participate in the discussion and vote or anything if there was one. Any questions on the business plan? We have Mr McCreevy here who can. Councillor Swift.
Apologies all. Yeah, I have several questions. I think, first of all, I think it's important to understand what market the leisure centre, we'll take the leisure centre in Eastwood as a prime example. What market is it in? Is it the cheap market? Is it the market, that I pay, for example, I'm quite happy to admit I pay £18 a month to access a 24-hour gym. So is it that market? And the answer to that would be no. Is it the convenient market, as in open for 24 hours or open late at night and early in the morning? It's no. Is it the convenient and easy for kids to access market? The answer would be no. And actually, I think one of the key things that we need to understand is how often this is open. Now, it's open, the last swim on a Monday is 8 o'clock. On a Tuesday is 8 o'clock. On a Wednesday for ordinary punters, public swimming, is 5 to 7. So far, is not too bad. But then on Thursday, it's 5 to 1 in the afternoon, not in the morning. It's 4:45 on a Friday. It's 5 to 2. It's 5 to 2 on a Saturday, and on a Sunday it's 5 to 12. I'm sorry. My problem is I don't think we know what market we're in, and we're not open half the time. I'll take the upper end of the market. If you look at David Lloyd, it's open from 6 o'clock in the morning till 10:30 at night. That's the pool. The gym's open Monday to Friday, 7:30 till 9:30, and Saturday 9 till 4:30 here. It's open till all hours in most facilities nowadays. My problem is we are willfully and intentionally excluding access, particularly to the pool, but also to the gym, at hours where people clearly want to use other facilities. And I would like to, the question I'm getting to is, what percentage of the leisure market are we excluding ourselves from, or is the trust, sorry, it's a separate body, excluding itself from? And that's my question.
I'll ask Mr McCreevy. Do you want me to take a number of questions, rather than call you in constantly? But
I'll deal with them one at a time, if that's all right,
okay.
while I remember what they are.
Right, fine.
I'm a little bit confused, Councillor Swift. You seem to be suggesting that when the pool is available for swimming lessons, that they're not customers or residents of East Renfrewshire.
Sorry, no, I've got the opening hours for the pool in front of me.
No, I'm afraid they're incorrect.
They're wrong? You're wrong.
Yeah.
I downloaded them from the website. You're wrong.
No, they're incorrect.
I emailed you yesterday. Did you? Yes. Can I have the real opening times then, please?
I can send you a note of the. In fact, what I'll do is I'll give you a breakdown of the public pool availability by user, if that's helpful. I'm happy to do that.
That would be helpful.
Yeah. One thing I would say though is we're going to change our pool programme from April to balance public swimming and swimming lessons, because we're aware that that's always a difficulty. Of course, it's one of the reasons why we would like to see a larger pool in East Renfrewshire. And have suggested a 50-metre pool would be suitable to balance the mix between swimming lessons and public swimming.
So when does the last swim at the weekend?
Yeah, Councillor Swift could speak through the mic. Thank you.
Can I ask a question, Provost, please? Can I ask a question, please?
Please do ask it.
When is the last?
Like I said, I'll send you the times. I don't know whether you mean the last public swim or the last swim for a lesson.
Public swim.
I think it's just after lunch on the weekend, and then it's swimming lessons. Obviously, they're also customers.
Thank you. So it is pretty much what I was saying then.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the management plan from? Okay, happy with it as a management plan. Thank you very much. Can approve that. Moving on to item 13. Which is the Head of Service Redesignations within Corporate and Community Services Department. The report seeks your approval for the deletion of the post of Head of Democratic and Partnership Services and the redesignation of the remaining Head of Service remits. We have the appropriate director here, Mrs Innes, who can answer any detailed questions any of the councillors may have on this. Okay, you happy with the report? Okay, thank you very much. And moving on to item number 14, the Local Licensing Forum, which is the appointment of another member. Again, it's fairly routine to appoint somebody additional to the Licensing Forum. Are you all content with that? Okay, thank you very much. That concludes the business this evening. Can I just wish everybody the compliments of the season? I hope you get a rest and a break over Christmas and New Year, and I wish everybody all the best for 2019. Thank you very much.